The crowd cheered for the next song, but Eminem froze. In his hand was a lyric sheet he never wrote. Yet every line described a future that hadn't happened. Not yet. The arena breathed like a single animal, ribs of light expanding and contracting with every cheer. Backstage, the hallway smelled of gaffer tape, warm cables, and 1,000 decisions made too fast. Eminem rolled the stiffness out of his shoulders, pulled his hoodie on, and scanned the set list someone had taped to the wall. The ink was fresh. The night was mapped. He just had to walk it, one verse at a time, like crossing a river on stones that only appear once your foot finds them. He didn't look down. He looked left toward the office printer by the door that wasn't there an hour ago. The thing stirred, itself awake with an insect hum, and spat a single sheet onto the tray. No one stood near it. No one had sent anything. He waited for a stagehand to snatch it. No one moved. Curiosity isn't a choice when your name is the rumor everyone believes. It's a reflex. You can't unlearn. He picked up the sheet. It was a lyric page. The font wasn't a font, it was handwriting. His handwriting. He knew his loops. The way his lines leaned forward like they were trying to beat the beat to the finish line. Across the top, someone had written a title he didn't recognize. The Forgotten Lyrics. His mouth went dry without a reason he could. Name. He read the first 4 bars. They were sharp and mean and carried a calm he only gets after a fight, not before. The 5th bar mentioned something that hadn't happened. Not yet. Phone rings backstage at 9:14. He checks the wall clock. 9:12. Coincidence? He told himself he wasn't the kind of man who lets paper set his pulse. He told himself a lot of things that worked until they didn't. At 9:14, the landline on the table rang. Not his cell, the dusty relic nobody used, kept for nostalgia or emergencies no one wanted to meet. He let it ring once, twice. On the 3rd ring he picked up static, then his own voice, older by a day he hadn't lived yet. If you're hearing this, don't take the right wing on the 2nd hook. The line clicked dead before he could squeeze a question through his teeth. He set the receiver down like it might bite. Paul appeared in the doorway, headset crooked, clipboard bristling with problems that would survive the night even if he didn't. 3 minutes, he said, then actually looked at Marshall's face. You good? Always, Marshall. Lead. And the lie held because the floor under him agreed to. The pre-show playlist bled into blackout. He stepped into the tunnel. The noise moved through him, not against him. He clapped his hands twice, the signal his bones needed damned. The stage became a drum he could trust. Solid and loud and honest in the way only wood is when it has to carry you in a city at the same time. He took the stairs 2 at a time. Rigging shadows crossed his eyes like bars on a window that only existed when you wanted out. He hit the mark. The track dropped. The arena cracked open. He rode its syllables like blades, breath like math. The old ritual where everything that almost broke him gets organized into time. The first hook came and went. For 45 seconds he felt normal, and mistook that for safety. 2nd hook. Muscle memory dragged him toward the right wing, a habit. Welded to 1,000 shows. The folded page in his pocket burned. He pivoted left, stealing a foot from a religion he'd practiced for years. A stage light, one that never fails, popped and fell where he would have stood. The bulb hissed against the riser, glass raining. Bright and brief, The crowd thought it was part of the show and screamed louder. He kept rapping because stopping would be a confession he wasn't ready to make in front of 40,000 people, backstage between songs. He grabbed a bottle, swallowed air and water and whatever else kept a man upright, then slid a thumb under the page again. The next lines weren't lyrics, they were instructions. When the bridge hits, the monitor in the left wing will show Eminem 032 remain. Watch the time stomp. At 0 o'clock, the feed will switch. He wanted to laugh it off. He didn't. The bridge hit. The left monitor, always dark during that section, woke and showed a live delay of himself from a camera that shouldn't be there. The time stomp slid down like a dare. At 0, the feed cut to an angle of the hallway behind him. On the screen, a man in a hoodie walked into frame and paused at the printer by the door. He never looked up. He slid a sheet in, he pressed print. Marshall turned in real life. The hallway was empty, as if that version of it had happened already and gotten. Board, verse, hook, verse. The page in his pocket felt like a living thing. The crowd didn't notice the way his eyes kept cutting right, then left. They don't come for your pupils, they come for your pulse. He gave it to them and saved enough to keep standing. He survived. The set on the kind of autopilot you earn with 40,000 hours of trying not to drown where everyone can see. The lights died. The night exhaled. He left the stage, sweating a weather you can't describe, half storm, half relief. In the green room, the couch had a memory of him and took his weight without judgment. He wanted silence and got it, except for the printer warming itself with that same insect hum. It spat another page. He didn't move for 3 seconds because moving would make it real in a way sitting never does. He stood, crossed the room, and took the paper. Not lyrics. A chorus cut into fragments, each line ending in ellipses, like a breath held too long. The final fragment said, "Open the envelope in your pocket now." His fingers found a sealed brown envelope he knew he hadn't put there. The seal was warm. The name across it wasn't Eminem or Marshall. It was the writer. He didn't like how the letters felt in his head. He broke the seal. A single Polaroid slid out, colors fresh and a little cruel. Tonight's stage, from the right wing, the exact second the bulb fell, his face half lit, half shadowed, lips in the shape of a syllable he'd never admit he swallowed. In the white border, in handwriting that looked like his butt wasn't, someone had written, "You listened this time." Under it, smaller, "Now listen better." He flipped the Polaroid. A time and place, 1:07 a.m. loading dock, C underneath. Bring the page. He checked his phone. 12:51. The world rearranged itself into a hallway. He left the couch like exiting a confession, and took the long way to the dock because short ways had started to feel like traps. The exit sign made everything look guilty. The night outside tasted like metal and a rain that couldn't commit. A single service light buzzed over the dock, drawing a soft yellow circle on concrete where someone had chalked words. "Stand here." He almost smiled. He didn't stand there. He stood 2 inches to the left, because superstition is a skill when you're tired of dying in obvious places. He waited. Distant laughter from a crew he didn't know well enough to miss. A truck in reverse somewhere far away. The page in his pocket, a heartbeat with paper skin. He was about to talk himself into walking when a cart rolled into view by its hands on the handle, wheels whispering, a taped box on top. The cart stopped at the chalk circle. He stayed 2 inches left. A phone inside the box began to ring. Not his ringtone. a slow, antique trill that made his molars ache like a memory. With teeth, he peeled the tape, lifted the lid. The ringing stopped. Inside, a cheap burner and a second lyric page, thinner, almost translucent, words appearing only when he tilted it toward the light. At the top, verse 2, if you want to keep writing. At the bottom, say the line out loud. No line provided. Just a blank underline waiting like a mouth. He picked up the burner. The screen was dark, no carrier, no time. It vibrated once, and a text bloomed without sender or punctuation. Look up, he did, and the service light coughed, blinked, and showed him the reflection of the dock in its metal cage, his shape. The cart's shape, and a third shape, standing inside the chalk circle he'd refused. The shape had his height, his shoulders, his stillness. It didn't have his patience. He turned his head. The circle was empty. He looked back at the light's reflection. The circle wasn't. The shape lifted its hand. So did his reflection. 2 inches to the left, late to its own cue. The burner vibrated again. Say the line. He stared at the blank underline. The night leaned closer, waiting for his mouth to decide who he was going to be when the sentence finished. He thought about the light that fell, the monitor that counted down, the voice on the landline that wore his future like a mask. He thought about the word on the envelope, the writer, and the way it made him feel, exactly like a character who'd just realized the book wasn't about him. He closed his mouth. The reflection smiled anyway. Somewhere behind him, a door latch clicked, soft, deliberate. The sound a record needle makes just before the first bar drops. He took a breath, and the reflection in the light didn't. The reflection in the service light's cage lingered a second too long. Its grin stretched faint and late. Marshall's lungs were hot, pulling in air that felt heavy. The burner phone buzzed again in his hand, though its screen was black. Letters bled onto it, glitching into words he didn't want to read. Say the line, or someone else will. His throat went dry. He dropped the phone back into the box. The cart didn't move. The reflection smiled anyway. The page in his hoodie pocket vibrated faintly, like a second pulse. He bent, pulled it out. The blank underline shimmered faintly, still waiting. He tore his eyes away, shoved it back, and turned. The alley's door creaked open behind him. He stepped into the corridor, sneakers whispering across concrete. The printer hum was waiting for him in the green room. He slammed the door open. The couch looked patient. The printer unplugged, cord draped across the floor was glowing, warm and alive. It spat another page. He snatched it. The words weren't lyrics this time. They were a message. You're not writing the story, you're remembering it. The paper shook in his hands. He dropped it onto the table, heart racing, sweat cutting paths down his temples. The mirror above the desk flickered like a screen, instead of glass. His reflection froze, pixelated, then restarted a half-second late. This time, its lips moved, though his stayed still. You already chose, Marshall. He slammed his palm against the glass. The reflection's voice carried back without sound, its mouth repeating the phrase again. He stepped away, shaking his head. His phone buzzed in his hoodie. He pulled it out. A new photo, himself, right now, palm flat against the mirror, mouth open mid-yell. The caption, page to complete. The printer shuddered again. Still unplugged, it spat another sheet onto the floor. He crouched, picked it up. The ink was wet. When you leave, check the alley door. 2:07 a.m., don't be late. He glanced. At his phone, 2:03. His heart flipped. He bolted through the halls, lungs burning, mind screaming. Stagehands blurred past, their faces blank, eyes glazed, as though they didn't see him at all. The exit door waited at the end of the corridor. He shoved it open. Cold air slapped his chest. The alley stretched long and narrow. At the far end stood a payphone. No booth, no cord, just the frame of an old phone, lit by a flickering street lamp. It rang. He walked closer, each step slower, until he was standing under the buzz of the light. He lifted the receiver, static, then his own voice. "You can't stop this. The verses don't belong to you anymore." He slammed the phone down. It kept ringing, shrill and steady. He turned away, but the lyric page in his pocket buzzed again. He pulled it out. Words crawled across the bottom margin, black ink soaking through like veins. "Look behind you," he spun. A hooded figure leaned against the brick wall. Its arms were folded, head bowed, his gut tightened. He took a step back. The figure lifted its head. His own face stared back, sharper, younger, crueler. The figure smiled. "You dropped a line." In its hand was another lyric page, edges trembling in the night air. The alley pressed in tighter, bricks damp with night air, shadows curling along the walls. The hooded figure unfolded the page and held it out like an offering. Marshall snatched it, his hand trembling against the paper. The letters bled, rearranged themselves before his eyes until they formed a single line. To Marshall's enter. Only one leaves. The words burned across his vision. His stomach twisted. He looked up, but the figure had vanished into the darkness, leaving only the page trembling in his grip. His phone buzzed. A message blinked on the screen. Backstage. Now he ran. The corridors blurred, empty and endless, the echo of his footsteps chasing him down. He pushed past a curtain and froze. The encore had begun. Through the stage lights he saw himself. Center stage, microphone raised high, the crowd roaring his name. Perfect posture, perfect delivery, verses he knew, but never wrote. Marshall staggered forward. His mouth went dry. The imposter had taken his place. He burst through the curtain, storming onto the stage. The arena erupted. To the crowd it was spectacle, the greatest encore stunt in history. To Eminem's Side by Side, thousands of phones raised, flashes like lightning. He tore the mic from the double's hand. Feedback screamed through the speakers, shrill and sharp. The double didn't resist. Instead, it leaned close, lips moving silently at first. Then the words carried across the speakers, though no mic touched its mouth. "You're the ghost. I'm the performance." The giant screens above magnified the scene. Both faces filled the arena. His own, sweating, furious. The double calm and flawless. Captions scrolled at the bottom of the screens in stark white. Two marshals enter. Only one leaves. The crowd screamed louder, half in awe, half in fear. Marshall shouted into the mic, voice cracking with rage, but the sound system betrayed him. His words sputtered into static. The double's voice boomed clear, filling every corner of the stadium. Stagehands stood frozen. Paul was motionless at the side of the stage, eyes glazed, headset slack against his shoulder. It was as if the script had swallowed them all. Marshall lunged, grabbing the double by the hoodie. His hands met flesh, warm and solid. The double only smiled wider. "You don't get to win by fighting. You only get to win by choosing." "What choice?" Marshall spat. The double raised a hand. A lyric sheet materialized between them, fluttering like smoke. Across the top, final verse. At the bottom, step left, the voice continues. Step right, the voice ends. The sheet dissolved into ash. The double's eyes glimmered in the spotlight. The arena floor trembled beneath their feet. The crowd, still screaming, began to blur. Their faces smeared like wet paint. Their voices collapsing into one unrecognizable chant. The lights cut out. Total blackout. Marshall's breath echoed in his chest. His heart pounded. When the lights returned, he stood alone. The double was gone. The audience still roared. But now the seats seemed further away, shifting like shadows. His phone buzzed once more. A new message glowed on the screen. Page 3 begins now. The blackout stretched too long. The arena began to stir, murmurs spreading, then crashing into roars. Marshall stood in the dark, his chest pounding like the kick of 1,000 bass drums. He tightened his grip on the microphone until his knuckles whitened. Then, without warning, the floodlights came alive again, flooding the stage in burning white. And he wasn't alone. At the far end of the stage, calm and collected, stood the other Marshall. His posture was steady, his silhouette crisp against the glare, as if the light itself chose him. The audience went insane. Phones rose like stars, camera flashes exploding in the air. To them, it was spectacle. To him, it was war. Marshall stepped forward. His voice was raw. "Who are you?" The double smirk was sharp. His voice thundered through the sound system, perfectly aligned with Marshall's own tone. The line, "You left behind." The double lifted his mic and launched into verses that didn't belong to Marshall, but could only have come from him. They were sharp, vicious, intimate memories only he knew, twisted and sharpened until they bled. Childhood humiliations spat back as punchlines, rehab scars rebranded as destiny. His daughter's name dangled like bait in every other bar. The crowd roared with every line, feeding the monster that wore his face. Marshall's anger boiled, climbing his throat like fire. He spat back bars unplanned, jagged words ripped straight from his veins. His voice cracked but stayed fierce, yet the system betrayed him. His mic fizzled, dropping in volume, while the double's voice boomed clean and flawless. The crowd roared, louder for the imposter, each cheer stabbing him in the gut. He looked to Paul at the side of the stage, but Paul didn't move. The stagehands stood like mannequins, eyes glazed, bodies stiff. The script had consumed them to dot the giant screens. Above showed both of them side by side. Marshall, sweating and shaking, rage in his eyes. The double, calm and composed, flawless delivery. And beneath their faces, captions scrolled in cold white letters. The voice is chosen, the ghost is fading. Marshall's stomach turned. He hurled his mic to the ground. The feedback screamed like knives, slicing the air. He lunged across the stage, his hands clamping around the double's hoodie. Flesh met flesh, warm, real. The double's smirk only widened. "You don't get to win by fighting," it whispered. "You only get to win by choosing." Marshall snarled, "What choice?" The double lifted his hand. Between them, a lyric sheet unfolded like smoke. Across the top, in black scrawl, final verse. At the bottom, step left, the voice continues. Step right, the voice ends. The paper dissolved to ash in Marshall's fists. The stage floor groaned. The lights strobed crimson. The left side of the stage lit up with a glowing path, while the right side drowned in shadows. The crowd's voices blurred into a chant that no longer sounded like words. His phone buzzed. he yanked it out. A single message burned across the screen: choose a Nosakon chances. His legs felt heavy. He thought of every fight, every lyric, every night he had nearly lost himself and clawed back. He thought of Haley's laugh breaking through static. He thought of the mirror smiling late. The double leaned close, whispering, "Step wrong, and she takes my place." Marshall's breath caught. His knees nearly buckled. The giant screens flickered again, showing visions of his past, but wrong. Alternate lives. Marshall in suits, Marshall on streets, Marshall with children that weren't his. Different choices, different scars, all of them blurred, bleeding into each other like a slideshow of ghosts. He shouted into the air, "This ain't real." The double laughed, voice booming across the speakers. "That's the problem. Neither are you." The stage cracked beneath his sneakers. The glowing path on the left pulsed faster, urgent, while the shadow on the right grew wider, swallowing amps and monitors. The choice closed in. The crowd screamed, but when Marshall looked up, their faces blurred again. 1 second they were thousands, the next they were gone. Every seat stood empty, 40,000 vanishings wrapped in silence. He stood alone under the floodlights. The double had disappeared. Only the chalk arrows remained at his feet, one glowing left, one drowning right. His phone buzzed again. A final message. "This is the last chorus. Step now." Marshall's chest heaved. Sweat slid down his temples. He looked left. He looked right. The silence swallowed him whole. And then the arena lights died again, leaving him in the kind of darkness that feels permanent. The silence was endless. Marshall stood alone beneath the white blaze of the floodlights, the empty arena yawning around him like a hollow grave. At his feet, the chalk arrows glowed faintly, the left pulsing red, the right buried in shadow. His chest rose and fell in jagged bursts. His voice was gone, torn away as if the stage itself had stolen it. He stared at the left path. It shimmered with false promise. Another verse, another tour, another future. But it felt written by someone else's hand, every beat a chain around his throat. He turned his eyes to the right. Silence, oblivion, maybe freedom, but freedom. Without a voice was just a coffin. The giant screens flickered to life. His own face stared down at him, lips moving with words he hadn't spoken. Beneath it, captions crawled across the bottom. The writer decides, not the written. Marshall's knees wavered. His skin burned cold. The Polaroids, the lyric sheets, the voices, they weren't warnings. They were drafts. He wasn't the author of his own life. He was the character. The lights turned blood red. The ground beneath him trembled. From the shadows on both sides of the stage, figures began to appear. Dozens of them. Dozens of Marshalls. Older, younger, angrier, calmer. Each carried his face, but each was wrong in some way, like unfinished sketches that had somehow come. Alive, they surrounded him, voices rising together in a single command. Choose. His hands shook. Sweat blurred his vision. His throat worked, but no sound came. He shouted inside his own skull, but the silence outside smothered it. No, he rasped finally, finding a shred of sound. Not this time. The doubles stepped closer, their shadows overlapping his, swallowing the arrows until the floor beneath him cracked. The arena groaned, steel beams screaming overhead. The chant grew louder. Marshall dropped the brass key from his pocket. It hit the stage with a sharp metallic ring that echoed like a gunshot. Every double froze. This verse is mine, he whispered. He stepped forward. Not left, not right. Dead center, the chalk arrows shattered. The arena floor split. The doubles convulsed, their voices breaking into static. The giant screens above burst into sparks, raining fire across the stage. His voice ripped back into his throat, raw and savage, shaking the rafters. This is my stage. Darkness swallowed everything. When the lights returned, he was backstage again. The printer hummed, softly, feeding out a final page. His hands shook as he tore it free. At the top, in bold letters, finale complete. At the bottom, thank you for performing. The paper dissolved into ash between his fingers. His phone buzzed once more. A final message glowed. See you next show. He lifted his eyes to the mirror across the room. His reflection smiled late. It was holding a microphone he wasn't. Slowly, the reflection leaned forward, lips forming a word his own mouth never moved to say. Encore. The light flickered. The glass went black.